Now, one of the aspects of energy we don't seem to recognise as much as we should is that as Australia increases its population, and it's currently at a record rate, we will need more baseload power than ever before. Now, the amount will vary depending on a number of factors: how much the coal industry can withstand attacks from green groups, whether we adopt electric vehicles in large numbers, and what new sources of power may emerge in the years ahead, which is a little bit iffy. But it's almost universally agreed that gas needs to play a major role as a baseload source into the future. So why then did New South Wales Upper House Labor MPs vote against a major gas development project in northern New South Wales and threaten 1,300 jobs? That is the question the industry, unions and even senior Labor figures are asking today. They're all angered about the pressure this places on gas supply in Australia and the price of your power bill. Since when has gas and jobs been the enemy of Labor? One of those Labor politicians against the New South Wales gas moratorium bill is Federal Resources spokesman Hunter MP Joel Fitzgibbon. I spoke with Joel just before coming to air. Before we talk about what may blow up in this issue, tomorrow, I'm hearing, can I ask you about the government's HomeBuilder scheme they've announced today? What was your reaction when you heard the details?
Chris, we're very pleased that finally the government has acted in this area. It's just so critically important to the economy and, of course, to so many jobs, including the work of our tradies. But it is not only late, but it is, I think, poorly targeted and I think ambitious in its overall number. There aren't many people around earning, $125,000 a year who have a lazy $150,000 to spend in the hope of picking up 25,000, which on that math is, about a 15% discount on the project. So I do fear not many people are going to attempt to take it up. That might be deliberate on the government's part because, of course, that means that the government spends less money again than what it's budgeted for. And we would have liked to have seen something more comprehensive, including something that deals with social housing, so the people who most need the help are receiving the help. And social housing is really easy.
That is state government, though, Joel.
But what we did, Chris, during the global financial crisis was hand the money to the states and directed them to just bring forward their capital works program. So the social housing that they might not have built until in 5 years' time, suddenly they could do immediately. And that, they're sort of more or less shovel ready. And that's the smart way, I think, to do it.
OK, let's talk about the New South Wales Labor Party. I know that coal, for many in the party, is a bit of a four-letter word, but I didn't know gas was, and neither did you.
Well, it's very disappointing, Chris. I have to say what's happening within the New South Wales Parliamentary Labor Party. We don't get more gas out of the ground. We're going to grow increasingly uncompetitive in our manufacturing sector. We're going to lose hundreds of jobs. And, of course, household electricity bills are going to continue to rise. Look, our coal-fired generators, Chris, are ageing. In New South Wales, 90% of the installed coal-fired capacity is 30 years old or more.
Yeah.
So we've got to do a couple of things. We've got to get on with the carbon capture and storage plan so we can add life to some of the newer generators, coal-fired generators. But we can't go just jumping immediately to 50% renewable, Chris. We need base load synchronous power.
Yep.
And we need plenty of it. And gas will play a critical role in filling that void left by the coal-fired generators as they age. And carbon capture and storage will help those gas generators enter the market with a fairly small carbon footprint.
So now, who in particular in the New South Wales Party is responsible for joining in this gas moratorium bill? Is it Jodie Mackay, the opposition leader in New South Wales, or is it purely the Upper House Labor MPs who voted for it?
Well, as I understand it, this is a decision of the whole caucus, Chris, collectively.
Really?
And I find it very, very disappointing. Narrabri, I think the target here by this guy, this independent former Green in the Upper House, is the Narrabri project. Now, the Narrabri project has been 9 to 10 years in the making.
Yep.
That in itself is ridiculous. It will be responsible for around 200 construction jobs, 1,300 construction jobs and 200 jobs on an ongoing basis, it will provide around 50% of New South Wales gas consumption. Santos, the proponent, has committed to keeping all of the gas here in our domestic market.
Yep.
They've got a voluntary planning agreement with the Narrabri Council, $15 million to improve local infrastructure, including local roads and work to be done at the airport. You know, what are people concerned about? Oh, and very importantly, Chris, this is supported by the local community. Now,
Absolutely.
I've always said, I know that there are communities like on the Tweed in northern New South Wales where the community doesn't want coal seam gas. Fine. We should not force it upon them. But in communities where they're welcoming the investment and the jobs, Chris, we should be supporting those communities. We should be getting that gas out of the ground and delivering some competitiveness to our manufacturing sector and, of course, creating local jobs.
This has angered the unions, and not just one union, because you're losing that many jobs, as you've stated. And I have a feeling they're going to take this further, because if the reason they've joined in a gas moratorium is because there's some CO2 emissions from mining gas, I'm sorry, what is your answer to baseload power?
Exactly, Chris. And of course, gas has a lower CO2 footprint than does coal. And of course, Santos, again, is very close to, I think, developing at commercial scale their carbon capture and storage system. In other words, the gas can become absolutely carbon free. It can be the carbon can be captured and stored in underground reservoirs. So there is no reason to oppose this project, Chris. Again, the result will be job losses, manufacturing losses, and higher household electricity bills.
So are you hearing anything from within inside the party as to why this has occurred and how far they're prepared to go? Is it a fait accompli?
Well, I think you'll find, I mean, the upper house passed the bill last night. Of course, the government in New South Wales doesn't have the numbers in the upper house, which is so often the case. But I think literally as we speak, it's being debated in the lower house where the government does have the numbers.
Yep.
And of course, we expect the government will defeat the bill. So all of this fuss, Chris, when the Labor Party was never going to be successful in its attempt to impose the moratorium in any case, it was really only a statement. But for me, it's a statement to all those working class people, all those blue collar workers the Labor Party is supposed to represent. And the message to them is that we don't support you any longer. We don't support your jobs. We don't support a competitive manufacturing sector. And the big thing here, of course, Chris, is that even if the Labor Party had been more successful today, they're not in government. They won't be in government for another 3 years. And of course, if they keep making bad decisions like this, it'll be a long time before they do form a government.
I couldn't agree more. Does it put Jody Mackay's position in some kind of jeopardy?
Well, I'm not in the state parliamentary Labor Party, Chris. I don't know anything about that. But one thing is for sure, the Labor Party needs to start demonstrating that it puts first and foremost blue-collar jobs, lower electricity bills, and, of course, a competitive manufacturing sector in this country.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And fancy turning against gas. I know they've turned against coal, but we've got to come up with some answers to baseload power, and technology may not give us those answers in the short to medium term. Joel Fitzgibbon, thank you very much for your time.
A great pleasure, Chris.